From the Rusk Center for Media in downtown Cape Girardeau, welcome to SE Connect, a program connecting you with the people, events, and issues at Southeast Missouri State University and the region. I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. On today's program, we'll be talking with two Redhawk student athletes who traveled to Panama in January to participate in a medical brigade where they provided consults, medications, and informational sessions to community members. That's later. Our first guest is Dr. Joseph Jefferson, Director of Jazz Studies and Assistant Professor of Trombone and Euphonium at Southeast Missouri State University. His teaching and performing is his passion as he shares his love for music with his students and audiences across Southeast Missouri. Dr. Jefferson was recently awarded the Jazz Education Network's 2022 Ellis Marsalis Jr. Jazz Educator of the Year. Dr. Jefferson, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on your award.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's first talk a little bit about you and your background and how you came to SEMO.
Well, a little bit about me. I came here from Portland, Oregon. 2017 was my first year here. And prior to that, I was in the Idaho area and then back on the East Coast where I'm from originally in Virginia. So spent some time in West Virginia as well for my doctoral studies, and then just kind of went around the country, if you will, and landed here in Southeast Missouri.
Well, and I told you 2017, I thought you'd been here a lot longer. In my mind. But,
yeah,
well,
but
cool.
you know, time flies.
It goes by fast, right?
So.
We're glad you're here. So what got you interested in music? I mean, I read some of the information about you. You're really passionate about music, specifically jazz. So was there someone that got you started and got you really interested in jazz?
Well, my roots and origins really started singing in the church behind my mom. And so just really learning music from the old tradition. And my mom telling me, well, sing this harmony and do this sort of thing. That's where the upbringing really came, and that's where I really developed the opportunity to be able to express myself without bounds. So having those gospel roots and understanding the blues and the different elements of being able to learn oral tradition and learn things orally really kind of inspired me. Yeah. It kind of pushed me towards understanding music and wanting to seek it on a more formal level.
Do you still sing?
Yes, I actually do, but singing in regards to getting pitches and different things like that, but not like I'm going out singing for large crowds, but it's definitely to enhance and help my learning and my understanding of my instrument.
Okay, so what got jazz going? I mean, you started singing, but what got you specifically into the jazz?
Well, I think being in the church, I had the opportunity to actually pick up an instrument, and so I was self-taught at trombone. I really taught myself, but again, being able to play behind my mom and my father in church, and being able to improvise and being able to do that. The church really provided a platform for me to do that, and it really inspired me. And at that time, I didn't really know and understand, all of the aspects of this great American tradition, but I soon found out that those skills that I was learning was very much important to this craft. And that really what sparked this. I had some really influential teachers early on. Ms. Petrie, who taught me piano, and Kenneth Woodley, trombone, and Julius E. McCullough, another pianist and clarinetist that really kind of saw something in me, maybe when I didn't see it in myself. And they saw some things that I picked up really well with, and they really kind of introduced me to not only jazz music, but different types of classical music, and they wanted me to be as well-rounded as possible. And so that's really been a part of my personal philosophy, and as well as my teaching philosophy here at Southeast.
Yeah. So you play trombone. Do you play piano? What other instruments do you play?
I play a little bit of piano. Okay. I play euphonium as well, and all of the trombones. So it'd be alto trombone, tenor trombone, bass trombone. Wow. So it's a whole little family of trombones. Yeah.
Okay. So what's your approach to teaching? I know you're very passionate about the music and pouring into these students.
Sure.
What's your approach?
My approach is really reaching the student where they are. I think that's extremely critical, and we have to make sure that we provide students with the best experience that we can offer them. That being said, if students come in at different levels, so you can't teach all students the same way. Yeah. And so it was really impressed upon me at an early age to make sure that you're making connections, that you're providing experiences so that students can get the most out of their time with you. So what I really like to do is just really assess a student, understanding where they are, and really identify the strengths that they have, as well as their deficiencies, and then find ways that we can kind of bring both of them up at the same time, while continuing to challenge them and encourage them to continue to improve and become lifelong learners.
I get the sense, just from some of the materials I read, that there's learning going on, but you have fun with this too. I mean,
Absolutely.
There's a lot of fun that goes into learning this.
Well, it has to. That has to happen hand in hand, for me especially, because otherwise it starts to feel like work, right?
Yeah.
It starts to feel like work. And I think the experience should be fun, especially when you're introducing new topics and things that might make students a little bit uncomfortable, whether they've never had experience dealing with certain things. So it's extremely important to provide or have some humor and just be really welcoming for a student, so that a student can be open to learning, rather than having a guard up and say, well, I don't know this and I'm a little afraid to learn that. I try to make the environment as open and as inclusive as possible, so that students can fully get a grasp of the information that we're trying to learn.
You would need it to be a welcoming, sort of safe place. I remember being in band, and there was nothing more stressful than when you had to play just by yourself for whatever reason. You talk about butterflies. That was always, so if it's a comfortable environment, that has to help immensely.
Yeah, it does help. Me personally, those butterflies never quite go away, but I do think that keeps you honest. It keeps me honest. Right, because if it no longer feels as though it's it shouldn't be debilitating, but if it no longer feels as though, hey, you want to do a good job, then you're probably doing the wrong thing. So there should be a point of, yes, I want to improve, but I also want to convey something to the audience that's listening, and I want to make connections. I don't just want to play pitches that are on the music. I want to make a connection with someone who's in the audience or someone who's listening to me.
I read that you said that teaching music goes well beyond playing the correct scale or chord relationships. And what did you mean by that?
Well, when you think about that, you know, this music is an oral tradition, and so of course there's a lot of different methods in terms of teaching it. So when you have different chord changes, which might change from bar to bar, there might be a set number of pitches that would sound best over that. Yes, that is correct, but also you need to think creatively on how can you implement a little bit of you and a little bit of the experiences that you have had into the music, because none of us really listen to music for that music to be, or it just has to be absolutely perfect. Or me in particular, I don't listen for that. I listen to music that is going to connect with me on some sort of level. And so it could be anything that we're doing. If we're working out, we want something that's going to get us pumped up, right? We don't want anything that's going to make us like, it's a drag. I got to get this workout in. You know, if we want something that's depicting our mood, so we want something that's going to be very striking to that. And so it's extremely important that students understand it goes well beyond what you see on the page. You have to understand this tradition. You have to understand the oral tradition. You have to understand when this particular piece of music was written, what was the intention behind it? Why was it written? What was happening in the world at that point in time? And so when I start asking those questions to my students, they're like, "Man, I didn't know it was that much into it." But like, yeah. So how can you try to get the intent out if you don't know why that piece was written, right? And so that goes for not only jazz, but it goes for any music that you're playing. You want to get the composers, the arrangers' intent out. What did they mean by that? Why did they write it like that? And especially if it has lyrics, do you know the lyrics? Right? And so it's important to be able to have that, so that you can be as intentional as possible when you're playing that music.
So listening to find out what the message was, because when the person wrote that, there was something going on in their life, and they could have been responding to that with the music that they wrote.
Absolutely. And so jazz always has and will reflect the times. And so it's extremely important to understand what was happening, why that was happening, what was happening in the country at that point in time. As we see jazz went in so many different elements, from the big band era to the small band era to the fusion era, what was happening? What were the reasons that the big bands could no longer travel? Gas spike. So when you look at all of those different things, it's extremely important. People wanted more opportunities to be creative, to improvise. And so smaller groups kind of provided those things. And so it's important to really do a little bit of research, a little due diligence to find out about what it is that you're actually playing and what it is that you're doing, so that way you can be intentional moving forward in your learning and development.
It's almost like the music as a time capsule.
Yeah.
You can look at the music to try to figure out what was going on at that particular time.
Absolutely. And I always tell my students, I said, what's the biggest room in the world? And they look at me. I said, room for improvement. That's the biggest room. And so we all have room to improve. We all have room to kind of figure out things. And so by listening and continuing to learn, we can continue to strengthen ourselves and then help and teach someone else.
We got a couple of minutes before we go. I want to talk about this award that you received. What were you surprised? I mean, how did it make you feel when you got word that you got that recognition?
I was absolutely just floored and very thankful. Really glad to be a servant, to be here, to be an advocate for this music, not only just here in Southeast Missouri, but also across the country, because I travel considerably and everywhere that I go, I'm a representative of where I'm from. I'm a representative of that church that I told you about that I play. I'm a representative of a faculty member being here. And so I'm a representative of a husband, a father, all of those things. And so being able to get this award was just, it was huge. It still is huge. And to really be recognized amongst peers in the largest platform for jazz, it was pretty amazing, and it still is. Yeah,
we're really excited for you, and I enjoyed talking with you. This has been interesting because when I read about your philosophy for teaching, it just seems really grounded, very personal, very impactful, and that's probably your strategy. That's what you're trying to do.
It is. I want every student to feel as though I care. It's one thing to say that you care. There's another thing to show that you actually care. And you have to realize that each one of us have different things that we bring into our daily rehearsal, and so it's important for us to be sensitive to that, as well as make sure that we are helping students reach their goals to get to and get through here and be able to contribute in ways that is meaningful to them.
Absolutely. Dr. Jefferson, thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, when we come back, we'll be joined by two Redhawk student athletes who traveled to Panama in January to participate in a medical brigade. You're watching SE Connect. We will be right back.
The Department of Computer Science and Cybersecurity has just received a designation, a statewide designation, as one of the signature programs in the state. It was chosen because of many of the other recognitions the Southeast has gotten. We are the first actual program in the Bachelor's of Science in Cybersecurity, the first ABIT accreditation in the state, the Homeland Security designation. So it does recognize that we are producing quality students. It's growing, and it's going to continue to grow because we read basically every day that someone was just hacked, and we need to be ahead of that curve. We are ahead of that curve. We have not only some of the best technology, as you can see from the cyber range, but we also have faculty who are very dedicated to students and are engaging in research and state-of-the-art work to keep our students informed.
We are very pleased that Southeast has received statewide mission designation for the arts. It recognizes us as leaders in the visual and performing arts and confirms the quality of our programs. We are Missouri's only campus dedicated to the arts, being art, dance, music, and theater. And we are nationally accredited in all 4 areas of the art. This year, we were named a Yamaha Institution of Excellence, and theater was named a top musical theater program in the country. We've seen the number of majors increase greatly, and we're recruiting nationally. We consider it critical for our programs that we demonstrate to students how to get careers in the arts. We have students who've been stage managers, they've opened their own dance studios, they're doing film work, just all types of careers. We never rest. We keep going, and there'll be something new tomorrow.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are in the right seats for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Welcome back to SE Connect. A group of 14 SEMO students traveled to Panama in January to participate in a medical brigade where they provided consults, medications, and informational sessions to community members. 2 of the students that made the trip are here with us. Claire Morrill and Mackenzie Pugh are distance runners in track and field here at SEMO, and they're here to tell us all about the trip. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so let's start with you, Claire. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, and your major, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm actually from Cape Girardeau. Went to Notre Dame, been here pretty much all my life. I decided to study medicine or medical field going into college. I lifeguarded a lot in high school and really enjoyed the medical scenarios that went on there. And so I started here as a pre-med student and lately switched to becoming pre-PA. And I actually am attending PA school coming in August, so very excited about that.
Okay, cool. Okay, Mackenzie?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, so I went to high school in Francistown North for everyone else who's from St. Louis.
Okay.
When I came to college, I actually was originally majoring in dietetics because I knew I was very interested in health and the human body. But as I kind of went through career counseling and stuff, realized that I was more interested in the hands-on aspect of helping people, kind of like that. So then I transitioned to pre-physician assistant. So I'll also be going to PA school hopefully, but I'll be applying next year.
Okay, all right. Well, tell us about how did this trip come about, Claire?
Yes, we started realizing that this trip was an option when the chapter itself started advertising for it about a year and a half ago. They were trying to plan for one during COVID, but because of like budgeting issues with the university and our own like funding issues, just because COVID was a little bit restrictive for everybody, they decided to push it off until January. And so the chapter leader, Grace Patterly, which is a tennis player, a great friend of mine, she reached out to us, and any medical student, honestly, hey, like we need people to go, and we're like, this is a great opportunity. And so a couple of the athletes were like, let's get together and do this, let's figure out our training and let's go for it.
Yeah, was it kind of a, did you expect to get to go, or did you think you wouldn't get to go? What was the thinking around this time?
It was up in the air, only because of like more of the budgeting aspect. We weren't sure if the university was going to give us funds or not, and so that was more of the concern, was how we were going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And eventually we got it together.
Okay. Another thing, as the trip got closer on, a lot of flights were getting canceled due to COVID and stuff like that. So it really was up in the air until the very last few days, but we're really happy it ended up working out.
It just adds a little bit of stress to the mix, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how many students went? And I think there were 4 student athletes. So tell us about the group that went, I guess, the composition of the group.
It wasn't just medical students, believe it or not. So our chapter went for a medical trip. And we actually had people who were like in marketing, we had a fashion major, a couple nurses, a couple pre-meds, a couple PA students. And we fortunately were paired with other universities. One of them was a dental brigade, and they were all pre-dental students. Okay. And then we were also paired with another pre-dental group So it wasn't just medical, it was a couple other majors, and so it kind of brought different perspectives to each person that we got to see.
Was it surprising that there were some non-medical students to go? Did that surprise you all, or not necessarily?
Yeah.
I thought it was surprising. I think it's a really cool opportunity, so any student of any major would really enjoy it. But it was a little interesting having someone as a fashion student be taking blood pressure, but everyone did really great.
Well, yeah, but I mean, ultimately it's about giving back, right? So I mean, I guess it just works.
It was very exciting to see them who didn't really have a medical background get into it and really learn like, everyone got to.
Okay. So there were several stations at the clinic. So tell us about some of the stations and what you did at each one. Did you get to rotate through, and just kind of how the setup was?
Yeah, so whenever a patient arrived, they got their demographics taken in, their name, where they lived, that kind of stuff by a paramedic and one of the community health workers at the front station, I guess. And then they were taken to the triage station where us students were there to take blood pressures, vitals, pulse, stuff like that, and then ask them, their family history, their allergies, just any kind of basic information that a nurse might do whenever they go see a patient at a doctor's office.
But this is all in Spanish, mind you.
I was going to ask about
Spanish.
So it is all in Spanish.
So was there someone to help translate, or did you guys just have to kind of...
We had translators,
Okay.
yes. There was a translator or two at each station, but we did what we could. Global Brigades provided us with like a guide of basic questions, and if you knew some Spanish, kind of go off from there and ask your own. But yes, it was all in Spanish, and so in the triage station, get down what you can, get it as clearly as possible, and then as efficiently as you can, because they have to go to the dentist and see the dentist, or they have to go into a patient consult with the physician. So we had 2 physicians with us and 2 dentists. They were lovely to work with, and they did a great job of translating as they could too. Each situation's different, and they're busy, so.
Well, and I guess we talked on the phone to get ready for this, Claire and I did, and so one of the things that made me think of was, if you're going to be working in the medical field, this will be something that will happen where there's a communication barrier perhaps, and you have to overcome that to provide good care.
Oh,
right?
For sure. It's really exciting to see how what you can do with what little you can extract from just talking to patients. You can learn about their whole family, even if they're in the room, and family history, and something that might be going on just by how the patient's acting. You can learn so much about a patient just by asking so little, and it was neat to be able to use that in the triage, getting their information, and then seeing the doctor consult with them about what you already knew.
Part of it is, I guess, is reading the room. So if someone comes in and you say, it looks like your shoulder, you've been having trouble with that? Oh no, and you see the family members going, oh yes, you have.
Yeah.
Then okay, we're not getting the full story here. So it's part of reading the body language, right? I guess.
Oh yeah, and another barrier to that too was a lot of patients, this is their first time they're getting to see a physician in years, and so they're going to want to tell you about every ache and pain or everything going on from 5 years ago. And as a minor Spanish speaker, you're kind of like, okay, let's repeat the question and get back on topic because we can't understand this, or we don't have the ability to help you with this right now.
So was there, when you set up and the clinic was there just a lot of people coming from the different areas?
All day.
Yeah, when we would show up in the morning to set up, there would already be a super long line formed, and then we would see people through for as long as we possibly could. And then eventually you do have to cut the line off because we have to get people through all the rest of the stations. But it helped that we were there for more than one day. So if people couldn't be seen the first day, they would come back the second day, which was helpful. But
so there was a big demand.
Yes.
When they knew you all were there.
They even came from different communities, like outside communities from the one we were at. And so it was very neat to see that they made their way over here to see us.
And traveling wouldn't necessarily have been easy for them. It's a very, very rural area, right? So if somebody made the trip, they really needed to.
If they made the trip, they were walking for hours. If they were outside of the community, or they took a bus, because most people there don't have cars or transportation.
Okay, besides the clinic days, you guys did community visits. So what was that like?
Yeah, so the first day we were there, we visited a nearby community, probably like 20 minutes from where we were staying. And we got to see kind of the infrastructure and how they earned their income as a low-income community. And they showed us some of their buildings, a lot of the work that they did to make money, such as dyeing clothes, weaving baskets, making jewelry. And they had this huge area of tables set up for us just so we could look at and hopefully purchase to help them make some money.
Okay.
And we were actually the first brigade to go there since COVID had started, I think.
So it would have been about 2 years since they've seen a community.
We got some of the picture here. So I guess, is this the whole group here that we're seeing now?
Yeah, so this is the whole group that we traveled with. There's some of us, obviously we're not matching, so you can't tell who's who. But there's this group from Northeastern College in Boston and another university, I can't remember where.
From Arkansas.
Oh, right, Arkansas, yes. And so they're all pictured there, and then a couple of our Global Brigade staff members, one of them's in the orange in the front, smiling really hard up there. And then the paramedic is pictured on the right. She's in a blue vest as well.
Okay.
And this is actually the school that we had the clinic in on our second day. I think it's Zapaya community, but we had our clinic here in the school.
Wow. So that's the whole group. So was there like 35 students, I think? And here you are. This is you, isn't it?
Yeah,
Claire?
this is a picture of me taking someone's pulse, it looks like.
This is a good experience. If this is what you're going to go into as a career, I mean, you may speak to just how this really prepared you, right? Both of you.
Absolutely. That's me taking someone's blood pressure.
Okay.
One of the things we also talked about with the patients was if it's young women, we had to ask every young woman if they were pregnant or could possibly be pregnant because young pregnancy rates were so high. So that woman actually had, I think, 4 or 5 other children, and she was only able to bring one with her that day.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. We've got just a couple of minutes here. So before we go, thing that really just it's stuck with you since you left, you haven't forgotten about. Claire.
Yeah, one experience that I actually was fortunate to be able to go through was I had seen this whole family who had chronic hypertension. And so grandma, mom, dad, and adult daughter came in. I was taking all their blood pressures. Grandma was really hypertensive. Mom was really hypertensive. Dad was really hypertensive. And I'm just like, oh boy, getting to the daughter, and I'm just like, how high is this going to get? Because these are the first times I've taken blood pressures this high. And so I take this woman's blood pressure, and it's like extremely high. I had never taken one that high before, and I was like, okay. So what we were told to do was take them to the doctor immediately for immediate treatment.
Yeah.
And so I got to do that, and what I got to see was how the doctor there gave her immediate treatment with such limited medications, such limited tools. And so for me, like, I got to see how that could work in such a remote setting compared to a busy facility like we're used to here.
Just got a few seconds, but what stuck out to you, Mackenzie?
I think one thing that really stuck with me from the trip was interacting with a lot of the children from the communities. Not only are they young children and they're shy, but there's that language barrier, but we were still able to form really good connections and stuff like that, and I just really appreciated it. One kid actually, so we were teaching them oral hygiene, and one child, after we left, said thank you to me in English after I'd been speaking to him in Spanish all evening, so it was really good.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here and sharing your experience. This was really neat.
Thank you so much.
SE Connect is a collaboration of KRCU Public Radio and the Department of Mass Media here at Southeast Missouri State University. Thanks to our guests and to you for watching. From the Russ Center for Media, I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. Be sure to tune in next time for SE Connect.